Best of r/malicious compliance episode 14. When I moved to a new high school, I read their dress code BC. My old one didn't have one and I was not trying to get dress coded. One of my teachers pulled me aside one day and told me to go to the office because I was breaking dress code. I knew I wasn't, so I asked her what was wrong. She said something about my bra showing in the back. I went to the office and I was trying to fight them on it. BC, I knew the dress code didn't say anything about that, but they wouldn't budge on it. They were determined to force me to walk around in a giant ugly neon shirt all day. I asked them if I could go to the bathroom, so I just went and took off my bra and put it in my backpack. Then when I came back out I was like, there, my bra isn't showing anymore. Thank you. Next. Background. I work at a help desk type role where I get a lot of emails and phone calls from internal employees asking questions about various issues. Recently my boss has decided that my co-worker, who has no experience with my work, should take over some of my duties and gave her a nice fat promotion along with it. This co-worker took it on full force to the point of excluding me from meetings to discuss the job or asked me for my thoughts on things. Yesterday I was actually told to cease and desist from talking to one of our vendors because it was no longer part of my job. Today we had a scheduled report that should have only gone to managers, but there was apparently a meeting late last week where she decided to send the report to all employees for visibility. Since I was not part of this meeting, I couldn't voice my concern that such a change with no notification to the employees beforehand will cause a disruption in work. Knowing that it was going to cause a panic the second I saw the email in my own inbox this morning, I set up a rule to forward all questions to her. Over 100 so far, and it's only been 4 hours since the report was sent. She has already reached out begging for my help, and I told her that I'm not able to help since I wasn't part of the meetings where this was discussed, so I don't know the answers to the employees' questions. I made popcorn for lunch to enjoy while this shit show unfolds. Edit. It has now been almost a full day since the emails started rolling out. I'm on the phone with co-worker right now. She is giving me a pile of tasks to do to help cover her ass. She keeps saying I just didn't know how much of a response this would cause. Our director has been informed of the problems and co-worker did take responsibility for it. Our IT security folks have been spammed with people reporting it as phishing, so they are not too happy. We are having a meeting on Monday to discuss how we can do better next time. I asked her how she is going to start to reply to the emails since it's her job to answer all these questions people have, and she told me she doesn't have time. She then asked me to help her by responding to the simple ones for her. I said I would be happy to help, but I will need her to tell me what to say, so she still has to read through all the emails. Emails are still trickling in and my office is usually pretty quiet on Fridays with people taking time off or working from home. So I'm sure we will get another nice batch of emails on Monday that she gets to deal with. The popcorn was a perfect afternoon snack with my snark. Thank you. Next. I had a boss who told me not to tell him how to put a computer together because he already knows how and I don't need your unsolicited advice. Okay. Strap yourselves in for the background. I am a woman. In the tech industry. Do you already see where this is going? Not only was I a tech at this place, I was the tech. The one who trained 80% of the techs, had the highest numbers in district, and top 10 in the territory, but I always went by my last name. So, everyone who wasn't physically in my store, thought I was a male. Due to circumstances, we ended up getting a new manager from another store out of state. His first day was on my day off. My co-workers told me he wanted 2 hours with each of us to learn our thoughts on diagnosing issues, and he was really eager to learn from us. He was especially interested to learn from the top tech who he heard about in his previous store, until he learned I was a woman. He did 2-hour sessions with all the other techs but me. He always went to the male techs with questions. He tried to make me work the counter to just check computers, and when I was one of only 3 full-time repair techs and we had 7 counter techs, he tried to make me do his paperwork on several occasions. He also started trying to repair computers by himself. Even though that was not his job, he would leave computers half repaired with no notes, then write up whatever tech he thought should pick it up where I left off. The whole team hated him and started making remarks of, well, OP could fix this if you asked her, or I think OP fixed something similar in an hour and you've been at this for 2 days, and other phrases to piss him off that a woman knew more than him. This was the perfect setup to one of my favorite moments of my career. Manager got it in his head that he was going to do something to prove he knew his stuff, so when a customer came in wanting a custom built computer, which we weren't supposed to do, he grabbed the opportunity. He helped the guy pick out the parts, compare prices, and sold him the labor to put it all together. He also told me he was going to build it in my repair space, and he was doing this alone. And, I will never forget this. Don't tell me how to do this. Let me learn. Oh, I will. Cue the manager putting this machine together on the bench behind me while I continued my work, just waiting. Manager has it together, hits the power switch. Computer turns on, then off, then on, then off. He unplugs, then takes it apart, then together again. Same result. I can hear the wheels turning behind me, but he told me not to give him advice. So, I keep working with my mouth shut. Let him ask me when he is good and ready. He then believes parts must be bad. So, he has the customer send parts back, wait for the new ones, then try again. Same result. This continues for 2 months. He has a customer, who is obviously very angry at this point, send every single part back, then have a whole new set of parts delivered. He has promised the customer this is the last time. This time it will work. He definitely knows what he is doing. The day arrives where the customer brings in the parts. The manager is there. I am there. I stop repairing computers as he puts the final part in, and I lean against my bench to watch what is about to happen. How could I not? He hits the power. Same result. He is furious. He throws a screwdriver across the bench, denting the wall, and curses so loudly I am sure a customer heard. He puts his hands on either side of the machine, head down, shoulders slumped, utterly defeated. In a quiet, oh so quiet voice he asks, OP, what's wrong with it? Me, the motherboard and processor aren't compatible without a BIOS update. Manager, how long have you known this? Me, since you first turned it on 2 months ago. He turns. He is red in the face. Veins are bulging, and I'm pretty sure he thought about decking me for a second before composing himself with a very, very deep breath. Manager, why didn't you say anything then? Me, smiling sweetly, because you told me not to, and to let you learn. So, have you learned? He stormed off, and out of the store. He ended up taking 2 personal days, and I ended up building a new PC that actually worked. Customer was cool once I explained everything and even showed them how I cable managed to allow the best cooling and looks with their clear case. It's a story that ended up being the legendary story to tell all new techs. I left the company a few months later for a higher paying job, and that manager ended up getting fired due to my GM believing him the reason for my leaving. I never corrected that perspection. After all, how else will he learn? TL. Doctor. Sexist tech manager tries to one-up me. The female tech asks me not to offer advice unless asked for it. Ends up screwing up a custom computer for 2 months until finally breaking and asking me how to fix it. Edit. Forgot to say, my team was 14 male techs plus me. They all knew what I was doing, and also didn't offer advice. They bought me a lot of drinks that day. Edit 2. Holy crap. A gold star. Thank you. Thank you. Next. This is a post about how the internet is serious business. Long ago when I was a younger man I spent a lot of time at an online community dedicated to Star Trek and other sci-fi stuff. This place was unique because you could join various departments modeled on how the Enterprise worked, and gain ranks because it was a super geeky place with a lot of wonderful nerdy people. Hi Brandy. I know you know my username here. A little background on how things were organized. You basically had a person in charge of a genre, and a deputy to help them. Then there were people who oversaw all the various genres and made sure everyone was playing nice. I was the deputy in charge of a genre. I had a boss above me, and then he had several layers above him in charge of running the overall site. That's it for the background info. So the Hitchhiker's Guide movie is set to come out. Like I said, this was a long time ago. I was a big HHGTTG fan. And so I came up with an idea to mix things up on the site and have a month-long event leading up to the movie's release with fun events for the community to participate in that would involve every department and genre on the site. I came up with the proposal. and outlined it to my immediate supervisor over MSN Messenger because, again, that's how old the story is. He loves the idea, and tells me to send in the proposal. Now this is where my malicious compliance kicks in. I knew he wanted me to send the proposal just to him via email. I also knew that this guy was something of a kiss-ass who didn't really like the genre we were administering and got into that position by taking the credit for other people's work. I also figured he was about to do the same with me, and there wasn't a chance in hell I was letting that happen after all the work I put into this proposal. So I sent him the proposal. I also sent it in separate emails to the head of the entertainment department for the site, who also happened to be married to my boss's boss. I also sent it to her husband for good measure. She sent me an email back seemingly confused. She loved the proposal, of course, but she wondered why she got the same proposal from my boss shortly after I sent it in to her and her hubby, but without my name on it. I played innocent and said I wasn't sure even though I knew the snake in the grass had tried to take credit for my work. I helpfully explained that I'd come up with the proposal and he told me via chat to send it in, so I sent it in as he requested. Later on my boss had a snippy conversation where he asked me why I sent my proposal in to anyone but him. Again I played innocent and told him he'd asked me to send in the proposal, so I sent it in to the people who could approve it while also giving him a copy. He told me to send everything through him in the future, but at that point I had the ear of his bosses, which meant I could effectively go over his head in the future since it was, after all, just a sci-fi fan site being run by a bunch of dedicated volunteer nerds. Long story short, Boz ended up resigning shortly after all of this went down. I ended up getting his job, and eventually wound up running the site for a few years before changes in the internet sounded the death knell for an ancient HTML chat and forum-based website with a dwindling user base of diehards. I do cherish my time there looking back. I learned more about working with other people and leadership helping to run a Star Trek fan site than I ever did from any college course. Thank you. Next. I was inspired by this post and wanted to write my experience. In middle school, we had a strict dress code for girls. It was a public school as well. One of the rules was that you couldn't wear an off-the-shoulder shirt. Another was that straps on shirts had to be at least an inch thick, lest the boys go crazy for our sexy shoulders. My parents didn't care about how I dressed, but they made sure it was appropriate in every way, shape and form. By that, I mean that as long as I was modest and following rules, I could dress myself. One day, I went to school wearing a shirt that had a wide neckline, and would often slip to off one shoulder. I was aware of this, so I wore a tank top with inch-thick straps underneath. I even color coordinated to make it all pretty. Anyway, I'm sure many of you can see where this is going. I made it through half my day, but at lunch, security came over and started yelling at me. I was in 7th grade and new to the school and did not handle disapproval well, so I started to freak out. They told me that I was in dress code violation for my off-the-shoulder shirt. Mind you, it wasn't intentional, it would just slide, and my parents would be called and I would be forced to wear my P.E. shirt for the rest of the day. However, as they are going on and on about the trouble I'm in, I realized that the tank top under my shirt was in full compliance. Instead of putting on more clothes to cover myself up, I simply took off the offending shirt, leaving me far more revealed. You could now make out that I was wearing a bra under my shirt. Scandalous. Security started to yell again, and brought me to the office, but they saw no problem with the current outfit I was wearing and sent me out. Moral of the story is that school dress codes are sexist and stupid, as multiple times people have to take off clothes to be in compliance. Thank you. Next. Obligatory on mobile excuse format. Quick background. I work nights. I'm usually out by 6 AM, but on this day my replacement arrived late. I managed to get only a few hours of sleep because family started showing to help prepare for Thanksgiving dinner. After Thanksgiving dinner my GF and her family wanted to go Black Friday shopping. They came by for me and I still only had a few hours of sleep in me. While in a store I saw a tiny, two-person bench and a shoe section. I took a seat. No one was sitting there or in any of the other 3 benches, so figured it wouldn't be an issue. Employee, excuse me, I'm sorry. Shifting because I figure I'm in her way. Employee, no, these seats are for trying on shoes. I need you to move. I'm sorry, I saw these were empty so I. Employee, well you have to move. I used to work retail so I'm always respectful and try to make things easier for retail workers. Between being tired and the way she approached things I went a different route. Me, fine, reaching out to the nearest shoe, a heel. Do you have these in a men's 11? Employee, that's a woman's shoe. Me, I'll take that as a no then. Reaching for another, what about this? Oh, the employee ended up walking away. Maybe the crazy shoppers had gotten to her, but no one was even glancing at the shoes. If this story doesn't fit, feel free to redirect me. Edit. Thank you kind stranger for my first award. Thank you. Next. Obligatory. This happened a few years back and this is my first post here. There was never an actual written or spoken request for me to reply to, but I think it was malicious compliance still. Sorry if not. So I work for my local government's road and infrastructure group. Project management engineering sort of things, and I was relatively green in my position at the time. We had had a few springs and summers with a lot of flooding issues and one of them landed on my desk to deal with. The location was a typical 2-lane highway in the middle of nowhere with grid road access every 2 miles. This particular location was full of non-draining hummocky terrain that would fill one low area and move on to the next one. This created a small lake a few feet deep over one of the low spots on the highway. The plan was basically to isolate the road using hydrodams, a giant plastic bladder filled with water, pump out the water near the highway, and place a crap ton of material down to build the road up to a passable state. This story takes place before any of that occurred, when we were on site talking about potential solutions. The highway was clearly signed with road closed signs and Jersey barriers at the closest grid road access locations, about 1.5 miles away from the site on the side that will matter to the story, and each signs were present. In order to get past the signage and barriers one had to make a few slow turns. There is no way anyone didn't know what was happening. During the discussion regarding what to do, one of the contractor's pieces of machinery was broken down and they were discussing that parts were on the way to fix it. A few minutes later a small truck, Ford Ranger sized, comes driving through the construction zone when I was away from the group checking something out. They stopped and asked if they could go through, and like a naive idiot I assumed it was parts for the machinery so agreed. I watched in horror as the truck didn't stop at the gathered crowd near the machinery but very slowly and carefully waded its way through the lake and out the other side. The water was most of the way up the side of the truck, but he managed to get through without issue and continue on his way. A few minutes later, with the solution discussed and material needing to be ordered, I jump on the phone and step away from the group talking to call up a supplier. Basically the group and some machinery are blocking one lane of travel, and I step away into the other lane. As I am talking to the supplier, a car very slowly makes its way through the signage and up to me. It's a man driving with a wife and kids in the car as well. I don't move. I could have, but I'm on the phone and I'm scared he won't make it through since the truck barely did. So I do my best to hand signal that he turn around and he can't go through. He shakes his head and indicates he is going straight through. I stay rooted where I am for a good 5 minutes discussing with my supplier what we need while trying to get this guy to understand not to drive through. His wife was obviously trying to do the same based on her reactions. But he waits me out. Eventually I finish my call and give the man a questioning glance. He smiles in non-verbal acceptance that he has defeated me. I move out of the way, and he proceeds to drive his car directly into the lake, which obviously floods his engine and stops him dead. Everyone on site has a good laugh, and then they pull him out so he can call to get his car towed. I left shortly after, and not a word was actually exchanged between myself and the driver. He was quite embarrassed afterward, obviously. TL. Dr. Man didn't want to drive around flooded highway on grid roads. Floods his car instead. His whole family watched,